Discovering a sociopath in your life can be challenging, as these individuals are often highly skilled at disguising their true intentions and manipulating the situations around them. Sociopaths can appear charming, charismatic, and even trustworthy at first, but beneath this facade lie behaviors and traits that can cause serious emotional and psychological harm to those around them. To identify a sociopath, it's important to observe certain patterns of behavior that reveal their true nature, such as an inability to form deep emotional connections, a tendency to manipulate friends and family for personal gain, and a constant disregard for social norms and commitments. These individuals often show a lack of empathy, difficulty maintaining healthy relationships, and a willingness to break friendships and family ties when they are no longer beneficial. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward protecting yourself and avoiding the damage a sociopath can inflict on your life. 1. Lack of empathy. A lack of empathy is a central characteristic of sociopaths and manifests in various ways in their interactions with others. They often struggle to recognize the emotions of those around them. Picture a situation where someone is clearly sad, with tears streaming down their face and visible expressions of pain. For most people, these cues are enough to evoke concern or compassion. However, the sociopath, due to a dysfunction in the areas of the brain responsible for processing emotions, such as the amygdala, might not pick up on these cues. To them, these expressions might seem meaningless, almost as if they are watching a scene in a movie without any emotional involvement. This difficulty in recognizing emotions is closely tied to their indifference to the suffering of others. Sociopaths might witness someone being hurt or in trouble and feel no discomfort or urgency to help. A classic example would be seeing a car accident and feeling no impulse to stop and assist the victim. This doesn't necessarily mean that they don't understand what's happening, but rather that other people's suffering doesn't generate the emotional response in their brain that would normally prompt a person to act. Studies have shown that this emotional coldness can be explained by reduced activation in the insula and anterior cingulate cortex, areas associated with emotional empathy. This creates an emotional distance that prevents them from truly connecting with another person's pain, whether physical or emotional. This emotional detachment goes beyond simple indifference. Sociopaths often display active disdain for other people's emotions. When someone expresses sadness or joy, the sociopath might view these emotions as weaknesses or, worse, as vulnerabilities to be exploited. In social situations, while others share moments of happiness or grief, the sociopath may feel contempt, interpreting these emotions as irrational or insignificant. They might even be bothered by more intense emotional displays, as if they are distractions from achieving their own goals. This contempt for emotions often reflects a utilitarian and cold worldview, where people are tools and their feelings merely obstacles to be overcome. This behavior of disregarding emotions is accompanied by a complete lack of emotional response to situations that would typically affect others. Imagine being at a funeral where everyone around you is grieving and expressing their pain over the loss of a loved one. To the sociopath, this situation might seem like just another ordinary event. Theory of mind suggests that while they may cognitively understand that people are sad, they cannot emotionally connect with that sadness. It's as if there is a wall between them and the emotions of others. They can see but not feel. This also explains why they can lie or manipulate without the slightest hint of guilt. The absence of an emotional response makes it easy for them to distort the truth and manipulate situations for their benefit, without any sense of conscience weighing them down. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of sociopathy is their cruelty without remorse. A sociopath might commit acts that most people would find unthinkable, such as mistreating an animal or emotionally manipulating someone, without displaying any sign of remorse. To them, these actions are justified by their own logic, often fueled by a grandiose sense of superiority. For example, if someone stands in their way, they might resort to cruel behavior simply to eliminate that obstacle, without caring about the emotional or physical impact they cause. This isn't the result of a temporary lapse in judgment but rather a structural deficiency in the moral mechanisms that regulate human behavior. Neurobiologically, there is a deficiency in areas of the brain, such as the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, that would normally generate feelings of guilt or shame after morally wrong actions. This type of behavior, acting with cruelty and feeling no remorse, illustrates the profound disconnection that sociopaths have from the moral and social principles that govern most human interactions. To them, the world is a battlefield where only the smartest survive, and other people's feelings are merely insignificant obstacles in the way of achieving their goals. 2. Manipulation. Sociopaths, masters of manipulation, often resort to excessive flattery as one of their favorite tactics to gain the trust of their victims. Imagine meeting someone who, from the first interaction, seems utterly captivated by you, showering you with compliments and attention. This behavior, known as love bombing, creates an illusion of security and comfort. The victim, surrounded by such adoration, begins to lower their defenses. After all, who would suspect someone who only seems to want the best for them? However, this tactic is calculated. The excessive affection is not genuine but rather a trap to create emotional dependency. Once the victim fully trusts the sociopath, they tend to rationalize any subsequent negative behavior, believing that the person who once treated them so well couldn't possibly have malicious intentions. This cycle of emotional manipulation is difficult to detect until it's too late. In addition to gaining trust through compliments, sociopaths have an uncanny ability to manipulate others' emotions for their own benefit. They can quickly identify emotional vulnerabilities, such as an insecurity or a deep-seated fear, and use them to control their victims. Imagine a situation where the sociopath notices that someone has an extreme fear of abandonment. They may exploit this fear, manipulating the person into believing that only they can offer the kind of emotional stability they so desperately seek. It's as if other people's emotions are merely instruments the sociopath can play at will to extract the desired reaction. From this perspective, people become objects, means to an end, as the sociopath coldly navigates through their lives, without considering the consequences of their actions. A common tool in this emotional manipulation is the distortion of reality, a tactic known as gaslighting. The sociopath might start with small lies or distortions of the truth, but over time, these manipulations become more frequent and severe. For instance, they might tell a victim that they forgot something important or are overreacting to their feelings, causing the victim to start doubting their own perceptions. The cumulative effect of this reality distortion is devastating. The victim, confused and insecure, begins to rely more and more on the sociopath for clarity about what is real and what isn't. Gaslighting is a powerful form of control because it traps the victim in a constant state of doubt, eliminating their ability to trust their own interpretations and forcing them to rely entirely on the manipulator. The sociopath's ability to rapidly change their personality is also one of their most effective tactics. In one setting, they can appear charismatic and affectionate, while in another, they may become cold and calculating. This chameleon-like shift is one of the most disturbing aspects of their manipulation. Imagine being at a party and seeing someone you consider a friend being friendly and charming with everyone, only to later discover that in a different environment, this same person becomes manipulative and controlling. This ability to adapt allows the sociopath to manipulate different groups of people, always adjusting their behavior to obtain the greatest possible benefit. In social or professional situations, they know exactly how to act to get what they want, whether by playing the victim or taking total control of the situation. Another manipulative tactic commonly used by sociopaths is the isolation of their victims. This often starts subtly. They may suggest that certain friendships are bad influences or that family members are interfering with the relationship. Over time, the victim finds themselves increasingly isolated from their support networks, whether friends, coworkers, or relatives. Without this external support, the victim becomes more emotionally dependent on the sociopath. Imagine someone who, over the course of months or years, finds themselves increasingly alone, with few people they can trust besides the manipulator. This isolation makes it easier for the sociopath to exert control, as the victim has no other perspectives to help them see the truth about the sociopath's behavior. The victim becomes trapped in an emotional bubble entirely controlled by the sociopath, making it difficult to break free from this toxic dynamic. If you're enjoying this content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Your subscription helps us keep creating content with love and dedication. 3. Constant lying. Sociopaths tend to lie about small, insignificant things, which can leave those around them confused. These lies aren't motivated by fear or the need to avoid serious consequences but seem to arise from an internal compulsion to distort reality. It's as if lying becomes a habit, a way to feel in control, even when nothing is at stake. Imagine someone lying about something as simple as what they ate for lunch or what they watched on TV the night before. For outsiders, these lies don't make sense. Why would someone falsify such trivial details? However, for the sociopath, this constant manipulation of reality is a way to test the limits of others' trust and strengthen their ability to deceive in more critical situations. When their harmful or even illegal behaviors come to light, sociopaths resort to more elaborate lies to protect themselves. They are masters at creating convincing narratives that deflect attention from their actions, either by minimizing the damage they caused or blaming others. Imagine a scenario where a sociopath is accused of unethical behavior at work. Instead of admitting their mistake, they invent a detailed story about a colleague who is sabotaging them, using carefully chosen details to support their version of events. By doing this, they not only attempt to protect their own reputation but also manipulate others' perceptions, ensuring that they continue to be seen as respectable or innocent figures. Even when their lies are exposed, sociopaths don't back down. They often persist in telling the same lies, even when faced with contrary evidence. For them, being caught is not the end of the manipulation but a challenge to be overcome. Imagine a sociopath being confronted with clear evidence that they lied about a specific event. Instead of conceding, they double down on their efforts, creating new justifications or further distorting the truth so that the victim begins to question their own perceptions. This ability to continue lying even after being caught is a powerful manipulation tactic, known to create confusion and emotional exhaustion in victims, who often end up accepting the lie to avoid continuous confrontation. Additionally, sociopaths are known for inventing complex stories to manipulate a situation in their favor. These stories are carefully designed to appear plausible and emotionally engaging, often containing true details that make them even harder to debunk. For example, a sociopath might invent a dramatic story about a personal crisis they are facing, such as a fictitious family problem, to gain sympathy and divert attention from their harmful behaviors. These emotional narratives are crafted to manipulate the reactions of those around them, focusing on helping or supporting the sociopath rather than questioning their actions or real intentions. Finally, a total disregard for the truth is a hallmark of sociopathic behavior. To a sociopath, the truth is a malleable tool that can be adapted as needed to ensure their self-preservation. There is no moral or ethical connection to the concept of truth, which allows them to lie without any emotional discomfort. Imagine a sociopath consistently lying about their personal life to present themselves in a way that benefits them in different social circles. They might invent a successful past or a personal tragedy, depending on what will be most useful in a given situation. For them, these lies are simply part of social survival. There is no internal conflict about distorting reality, as they believe that the truth exists to be manipulated as necessary to maintain their image and interests. 4. Egocentrism. The exaggerated sense of superiority is deeply ingrained in sociopaths. They genuinely believe they are better than everyone around them, even when there's no evidence to support this belief. Picture someone who, without having any major achievements, walks around as if they were the center of the universe, expecting everyone to treat them like a celebrity. This extreme arrogance can be bewildering to those around them, but for the sociopath, it's part of their worldview. They genuinely believe they are special, someone who deserves preferential treatment. However, deep down, this grandiosity may be a way of masking their insecurities. They won't admit it, of course, but there is a fragility inside that drives them to inflate their own importance to protect themselves. These individuals not only believe they are extraordinary but also expect to be admired and respected, even if they haven't done anything to earn it. You've probably seen that person who walks into a room acting as if everyone is obligated to pay them reverence. They have no problem demanding respect, praise, and status, but rarely put in the effort to earn those things. It's as if, just by existing, they believe the world owes them something. For those who have to deal with a sociopath, this can be frustrating and exhausting because this constant expectation of recognition isn't based on real actions or achievements. Everything revolves around their desire to be seen as grand, even when there's no substance behind it. An even more disturbing trait of sociopaths is their total lack of concern for others. They simply don't care about other people's feelings or needs. Picture a coworker who doesn't hesitate to step on everyone to get a promotion, without thinking twice about the people they are hurting. To them, others are like tools, they exist only to help them get what they want. They don't feel empathy, that ability to truly put themselves in someone else's shoes. This makes them cold, calculating, and often dangerous. This disregard for others isn't an occasional flaw but rather a constant feature of their personality. If a person isn't useful for what they need, they simply don't matter. And, of course, this comes along with a tendency to never admit they're wrong. Sociopaths have an almost pathological need to always be right. Even when confronted with facts that prove otherwise, they cling to their beliefs and opinions as if they were absolute truths. Imagine arguing with someone who, even in the face of clear evidence, refuses to back down. Instead of reflecting or considering the possibility that they're wrong, they double down, ignoring anything that challenges their worldview. This can be exhausting for those who have to deal with them, as there's no room for dialogue or change. This stubbornness isn't just irritating but also deeply frustrating, as it shows that the sociopath is more concerned with maintaining control than seeking the truth. Finally, sociopaths have a worldview completely centered on themselves. For them, only their needs and desires matter. They are incapable of seeing beyond themselves, which prevents them from forming real, meaningful relationships. Picture someone in a relationship who can never really care about what the other person feels. If their partner is going through a tough time, the sociopath might even pretend to care, but only if there's something to gain from it. Otherwise, they simply don't care. This lack of perspective keeps them trapped in a solitary universe where the needs of others are irrelevant unless they can be used to fulfill their own ambitions. Even when they understand, on an intellectual level, that other people have feelings, this understanding doesn't affect their actions, keeping them stuck in a continuous cycle of manipulation and selfishness. 5. Impulsive behavior. Sociopaths tend to make decisions without thinking about the long-term consequences. They act impulsively, without reflecting on what might happen in the future. Imagine someone who, when faced with a difficult situation, chooses the most immediate solution, even if it means creating bigger problems later. This lack of foresight can be seen in various aspects of a sociopath's life. For instance, they might irresponsibly spend large sums of money without worrying about how they will pay the bills at the end of the month. This is related to a deficiency in the functioning of the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for helping with impulse control and planning. What for most people would be a well-thought-out and calculated decision is, for the sociopath, an instinctive act focused on solving the problem of the moment, with no concern for the future. This same impulsivity leads them to risky behaviors, such as substance abuse or involvement in crime. They have a constant need for excitement and seek this sensation in dangerous activities. Picture someone who, to feel an adrenaline rush, steals a car or experiments with drugs without worrying about the legal or health consequences. These behaviors are linked to a malfunctioning reward system in the brain. They need more stimuli to feel pleasure, which leads them to seek risky situations more often than others. For them, danger is attractive because it represents an opportunity to feel something intense, without the concern of weighing the long-term consequences. In addition, sociopaths are known for rapid and sudden mood changes. They can go from a state of calm to an explosion of anger in a matter of seconds, without warning. This makes them extremely unpredictable. Picture someone laughing in a casual conversation, only to suddenly explode in anger over something seemingly insignificant. These emotional fluctuations can be confusing for those around them, creating a tense and unstable environment. And this emotional volatility is often not just a matter of lack of emotional control but can be used as a form of manipulation. Sudden mood changes leave people around them off balance, not knowing how to react, which can give the sociopath more control over the situation. Instinctive behavior is also a hallmark of sociopaths. They act without planning or rational consideration, often following their immediate desires. This can be seen, for example, in a work environment, where a sociopath might make rash decisions, such as firing someone or completely changing a strategy, without consulting anyone or thinking about the long-term consequences. This impulsive behavior stems from the fact that they are more dominated by the limbic system, the part of the brain that governs emotions and impulses. For them, logical reasoning and planning are overshadowed by the desires of the moment, leading them to act impetuously and often in ways that are harmful to themselves and others. This inability to control their desires and impulses is one of the reasons why sociopaths repeatedly engage in destructive behaviors. They can't suppress these impulses, regardless of the circumstances. Imagine someone who can't resist the temptation to cheat on a partner, even knowing that this could end the relationship. For the sociopath, the pursuit of immediate gratification is stronger than their ability to evaluate the consequences. Moreover, they don't seem to learn from their mistakes. Unlike most people, who avoid repeating behaviors that result in negative consequences, sociopaths continue to act impulsively because punishment or negative outcomes simply don't carry the same weight for them. 6. Lack of responsibility. Sociopaths have a marked tendency to blame others for their own mistakes and problems, constantly avoiding responsibility. Imagine someone who is always causing trouble at work or in their personal life but never admits to having done anything wrong. Instead, this person points the finger at colleagues, family, or even circumstances, as if they were the victim of a conspiracy or bad luck. This behavior is typical of a sociopath, who avoids at all costs recognizing faults. By projecting their flaws onto others, they maintain their distorted self-image, one of being above common mistakes. This lack of self-reflection and willingness to blame others preserves their sense of superiority, while leaving a trail of frustration and confusion among those around them. This disengagement from responsibility goes beyond blaming others. Sociopaths also disregard commitments and obligations in a notable way. For them, promises or responsibilities don't carry the same weight as they do for other people. If something doesn't offer an immediate or clear reward, they simply ignore it. Imagine making plans with someone who constantly cancels at the last minute, without remorse or explanation, as if commitments were irrelevant. This behavior reflects an incessant pursuit of instant gratification. If a commitment doesn't bring something of immediate value, the sociopath doesn't feel obligated to fulfill it. Furthermore, their lack of impulse control exacerbates this situation, as they can hardly plan or stick to any kind of routine or long-term obligation. Perhaps one of the most frightening aspects of sociopathic behavior is their complete lack of remorse for their harmful actions. They can lie, manipulate, hurt others, physically or emotionally, without experiencing a shred of guilt. Imagine a person severely hurting someone close to them but acting as if nothing happened, continuing with their life as if it were just another ordinary event. This absence of remorse is linked to emotional desensitization. What would prevent them from repeating the same behavior if they feel nothing when seeing the suffering they cause? For them, morality is a personal matter, and the impact of their actions on others simply doesn't matter. If the consequences don't affect them directly, there is no room for regret. In addition to not feeling remorse, sociopaths are skilled at justifying their inappropriate behaviors, always finding a way to blame others or circumstances. Imagine someone who lies blatantly, but when confronted, blames the situation, claiming they had no other choice. For the sociopath, this rationalization is a natural defense. They create a narrative that casts them as victims or heroes, never as culprits. This ability to distort facts helps alleviate any cognitive dissonance they might feel. After all, they need to maintain their self-image intact, even when their actions are clearly harmful or wrong. Even when guilt is obvious, sociopaths continue to evade it, offering constant and evasive excuses. Imagine confronting someone with clear evidence of a mistake they made and still receiving a flood of elaborate excuses trying to justify the unjustifiable. These excuses aren't merely a way to save face, they reflect deep egocentrism. The sociopath sincerely believes they are never wrong, or at least wants others to believe that. They can distort reality and create additional lies to escape blame, often deceiving both others and themselves. In this way, they keep their sense of superiority intact and avoid any criticism or self-reflection that might challenge their grandiose view of themselves. This set of behaviors creates a continuous pattern of manipulation and self-defense, in which the sociopath refuses to take any real responsibility. Whether blaming others, avoiding commitments, or justifying their actions, the sociopath lives in a world constructed to protect their own ego, without ever facing the emotional consequences of their choices. 7. Antisocial behavior. Sociopaths tend to blatantly disregard laws and social norms. They act as if they are above the rules that govern society, ignoring or defying them without remorse. Imagine a person who repeatedly violates minor laws, such as speeding or cheating at work, without ever considering the consequences. This behavior can be explained by the fact that many sociopaths have little connection to the norms that most of us consider fundamental. They simply don't feel obligated to follow them, seeing themselves as figures apart from the social system. To them, rules exist to control others, not to limit their own actions. This disconnection from norms reflects a deep detachment from the structures that keep society cohesive, such as family, school, and work, which facilitates their ongoing disregard for laws and regulations. This disregard extends to frequent participation in illegal or unethical activities. Sociopaths engage in behaviors such as theft, fraud, and even drug trafficking because, to them, these actions bring immediate rewards. The prolonged effort that many put into their careers or personal lives doesn't make sense to the sociopath, who prefers shortcuts, even if they are illegal. Imagine someone who constantly seeks to get rich quickly, whether through financial fraud or illicit businesses, without caring about who they harm in the process. For them, the risks of getting caught simply aren't as threatening as the benefits they perceive. The lack of fear and low sensitivity to consequences make sociopaths particularly prone to repeating these behaviors, even when there are significant chances of punishment. This attitude of disregard for rules manifests not only in criminal activities but also in social and professional settings. Sociopaths completely disregard norms of behavior in these contexts. Think of that coworker who never follows established procedures or that friend who constantly ignores social expectations at gatherings or events. To them, these rules are nothing more than irritating barriers that limit their freedom. They don't see norms as something that applies to them, believing that they can operate outside the restrictions that others accept. This need to break boundaries and disobey structures is a central part of their personality, which is constantly seeking extreme autonomy and total freedom from any external control. Acts of vandalism, theft, and violence are also common expressions of sociopathic behavior. These acts may be motivated by a need for revenge, personal gain, or even pure frustration. Imagine someone who, feeling disrespected or challenged, reacts by destroying another person's property or physically assaulting someone. These violent and destructive behaviors often involve little consideration for the consequences. For the sociopath, violence may be an effective tool to achieve their goals or simply a way to vent pent-up emotions. The behavioral disinhibition that many sociopaths display makes them less internally restrained from committing these violent acts, making them more likely to use aggression as a response to conflicts or challenges. The destruction of relationships is almost inevitable in the life of a sociopath, primarily due to their lack of empathy and respect for others. To them, people are merely tools that serve a temporary purpose. Imagine being in a relationship with someone who, when you are no longer useful, simply cuts all ties without remorse or explanation. This emotional coldness destroys any chance of healthy and lasting relationships. The inability to connect emotionally makes it impossible for the sociopath to build true bonds, and when others begin to demand emotional reciprocity or support, the sociopath abruptly ends the relationship, leaving a trail of damaged relationships. This emotional disconnection means that, for them, there is no reason to maintain ties when the immediate benefits run out. These repeated behaviors demonstrate a profound inability to function within the normal limits of society, creating a life of disregard for norms, destruction of relationships, and pursuit of immediate gratification, often at the expense of others. 8. Lack of solid relationships. Sociopaths often have significant difficulty maintaining healthy friendships or family relationships. They tend to push away those around them due to their constant lack of sensitivity and respect. Think of someone who is always involved in family disputes or conflicts with friends, not because of major disagreements, but because they simply can't establish or maintain stable emotional bonds. This is related to a dysfunctional attachment style, often developed during childhood. They may exhibit avoidant or disorganized attachment, which leads them to emotionally distance themselves from those closest to them or even create continuous conflict dynamics. For them, maintaining deep relationships requires more emotional commitment than they are willing to give, so they prefer to alienate others or maintain superficial relationships. In fact, many of the relationships sociopaths do maintain are based on self-interest. They are not seeking genuine emotional connections. Instead, they look for what they can gain from each interaction. Whether it's status, money, or any other type of favor, their relationships are transactional. Imagine a coworker who only approaches you when they need something but disappears when you need them. This reflects how sociopaths see people as tools they can use to achieve their own goals. When these relationships are no longer convenient, they break them off without hesitation or remorse, as there was never a real emotional connection. This makes their relationships short and empty, devoid of any depth. Manipulation is a common tactic for sociopaths when interacting with partners, friends, and family. They are extremely skilled at manipulating those around them to get what they want. Imagine being in a relationship with someone who constantly lies, distorts the truth, or makes promises that are never kept, all to ensure that you meet their needs. This manipulation can be subtle or blatant, but the goal is always the same, to ensure that their needs and desires are met, regardless of the emotional damage they cause in the process. To a sociopath, people are resources to be manipulated for their benefit, and the emotional well-being of their friends or partners is rarely considered. The inability to form deep and genuine emotional bonds is another central characteristic of sociopathic behavior. Even if they seem close to someone on the surface, this closeness is only apparent. Deep down, sociopaths can't emotionally connect with others in the same way that individuals with full empathy can. Imagine a friend who is physically present but emotionally distant. They may seem engaged but never open up or show genuine vulnerability. This happens because sociopaths don't experience emotions in the same way as most people, making it impossible for them to form true bonds. Their relationships are cold and distant, even when they appear to be warm or intimate to others. Due to their lack of empathy and commitment, relationships with sociopaths often end abruptly and destructively. They may seem committed and dedicated at first, but as soon as the relationship begins to demand more than they are willing to offer, whether in terms of time, emotional effort, or commitment, they simply abandon it or sabotage it. Imagine someone who constantly breaks friendships or romantic relationships unexpectedly, without giving clear explanations or caring about the emotional impact this break causes. This happens because, for them, convenience is the primary motivation. When the relationship is no longer useful or begins to require more than they are willing to give, they discard it without looking back, often leaving a trail of broken hearts and destroyed bonds. Identifying a sociopath can be difficult, but it's important for protecting your own emotional health. These people, although often charming and trustworthy at first, can cause serious harm through manipulation and a lack of empathy. Recognizing the signs, such as difficulty maintaining deep relationships, constant use of lies and manipulation, and disregard for rules and commitments, is crucial for self-protection. Even though it may be painful to acknowledge and distance yourself from someone like this, doing so is a crucial step to ensure that you surround yourself only with people who genuinely care about you and contribute positively to your life. Thank you for sticking with us until the end. Your likes and subscription are very important to us. Help us keep the books project alive and continue delivering high-quality content. Wishing you peace, and see you next time.